Hello, 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 and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Shania. Shania. And on this channel, I have loads of DIY sewing tutorials. Some of the tutorials are from things that I've made from scratch to finish, and other tutorials are of garments that I've taken and I've refashioned them. I've chopped and screwed them and created something new with them. So in today's tutorial, I'm gonna be showing you how to make this super cute top inspired by Shein. So this is actually a two-part tutorial. So in this first part here, I'm going to be showing you how to make the actual pattern pieces on paper. And then in the second tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to take the pattern pieces that we've transferred over to the fabric and put them together. Without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm starting with my torso block, which I have a video on how to make, or you can go to my website and download free ones for yourself. I'm using tracing paper because it's obviously easy to see straight through it, and I'm literally just going to trace the top half of my torso block, so from the shoulder down to the waistline, and I'm tracing all of the markings and the dart and all that good stuff. And here it's kind of light, so I end up just kind of retracing it so that it's a little darker and connecting all the lines. I'm using an L-shaped ruler because this really helps with getting like the right angle, right angle. And yeah, I'm just making sure the lines are clear, and I repeated the same steps for the back of the torso block. Like so, like that. Okay, so now we're going to start with the front, and I am measuring the midpoint of the shoulder line, and I made a mark. Then I'm just drawing a straight line down to the bust point from that shoulder mark, and then I'm measuring my bust radius, which is from my nipple all the way down to my bra wire, and that for me is 4 inches. So starting from the bust point, I'm just going to measure and mark 4 inches all around in a circle, and that will form my bust radius circle. And then I'm just going to connect all of the points so that I have a circle, like so, like that. Like so, like that. Yeah, it should look like this. All right, next thing you want to do is you want to measure a 1/2 inch where that line intersects with the bust radius circle. So I'm measuring 1 full inch, on the left, and then 1 full inch on the right, and I'm marking it. Okay, and then from the dart legs, so this part right here, I'm gonna measure a 1/2 inch on both sides of the dart leg, and I'm gonna make a mark, and then I'm going to basically connect those 4 points that I made to the bust point. And you see it forms a nice little X, and this is basically our contour. This is what's gonna snatch that area. And then from the bottom points, I'm just going to connect that straight to the bottom of the dart legs where the waistline is. We're gonna start at the waistline, and we're gonna do a 1/2 inch down from this from the waistline along the side seam. So we have it here, and then on the other side of the waistline, we're going to measure and mark a 1/2 inch down along the center front line. And then we're just going to connect this point and this point. So going back to the neckline, we're going to do 6 inches down. We're going to measure 6 inches and make a mark. And then from the shoulder line, so the shoulder midpoint line, where it connects with the bust radius circle, so which would be right here, we're going to measure a 1/2 inch down. Okay, so we have mark C and we have mark D, and then for mark E, we're going to do a 1/4 inch down from the armpit corner. Okay, so we have C, we have D, we have E. For E, we're going back to the waistline, and we're going to measure 4 inches up. This is our mark F. Right here on this line, we're going to do a 1/4 inch down. And this is mark G. And then we're going to repeat the same thing for mark H. We're going to do along this line here, we're going to do a 1/4 inch down. Okay, so we have mark A, we have mark B, we have point C, we have point D, we have point E, we have point F, we have point G, and we have point H. So we're going to connect C to H, and then we're going to connect point H to point G, and then we're going to connect point G to point F. So you can see we have our bottom cup line. It's a little like jagged, so I'm just gonna like clean it up a little bit. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to connect point C to point D. Okay, and then we're going to connect point D to point E. We have our whole cup here, and then we have that centerpiece here. This is our 4 pieces after we've cut them out. One thing I'm just going to add is the grain line, just so that I don't forget. I know that this is the grain line because of the fact that like this piece lines up with this bottom piece, and this is the center front line, and the grain line on the original pattern was like that. And then same thing with this. I'm just going to do, but to make the brow cup, I want to line up the top points of both pieces together. And then once you do that, and you'll see that you have this open space, and that's perfectly fine because we're going to be gathering the bottom of our bust cup with this open space here. So it's totally fine. So what you want to do is you want to just trace. So we're just tracing literally all around the pattern. And when you get to this open spot, you're just going to draw a line to connect these 2 points. And the line should be curved like a circle. You don't want it to be straight because underneath your boob is not straight, it's curved. And then you're literally just going to close this circle up. So when you remove it, you see you have your brow cup pattern. I'm just going to make it a little darker. And I'm just going to label this. So I'm going to label this. And again, I know that this is the grain line because it's in parallel with the side seam. So we have our 2 pieces here for the center panel of the shirt, and we're going to put them together so that the 2 lines there meet, like so. And you see once you do that, this curve will get a little tighter, and that's good because it is being contoured, which is what we want. So now I'm just going to trace all around the pattern. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and make that a little darker for you guys to see. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut out my pattern as well. Okay, so these are the 2 pattern pieces. In all transparency, I had already made these pieces when I was testing this blouse, but it's literally the same as what I just showed you. All right, so now we have our back pattern, and we are basically going to start at the top edge, and we're going to measure and mark a 1/2 inch down. And then we're going to take that mark and we're going to draw a line that connects from this mark to the corner of the armhole. So now for the bottom of our pattern, we're going to measure and mark a 1/2 inch below the waistline. We're just going to draw a straight line across that meets the side seam of this. Alright, so now we have our line here. So our whole pattern is this whole thing here, and we're just going to cut it out. Okay, so this is what the pattern piece is looking like, and I've titled it. It says Back Gathered Bust Top, so I know what it is. Cut, unfold, seam allowance not included. I've labeled the grain line, which is basically the center fold line, and I also cut out the dart, and this is going to make it easier for me to transfer this dart onto my fabric because I can just trace along this empty space here. I want to take my sleeve pattern and I just want to trace it onto another sheet of paper because we're going to like manipulate it so that we can create our puff sleeve. Okay, so once I've traced my sleeve pattern onto another sheet of paper, I'm going to divide the pattern into 5 pieces. So now I have cut my sleeve pattern into 5 different pieces, and I've labeled, so this was the center panel and I just labeled it as grain line from the original pattern piece, and then I added a double notch for the back side of the sleeve, and then I added a single notch for the front of the sleeve. Okay, so now I have 2 sheets of pattern paper, and I'm just going to lay my sleeve pieces on top of the pattern, and I've separated each of the panels by 2.5 inches, and I've made sure to line up the bottom pieces. So if I do my ruler straight across, you see that the bottom edges are all lined up and they're all separated by 2.5 inches. We're going to start first by drawing a straight line along the bottom of this sleeve, this spreaded sleeve. And then we're just going to, if you want, you can trace along here, but I'm just going to cut along the edges, so I'm not going to trace it. So starting from this mid panel, from the midline, we're going to measure and mark 1.5 inches up. So now we're going to draw a line that connects from the point of this front panel to this point, and then from the tip of this back side panel to this point. So it should be one big curve. And when we're adding seam allowance, we're just going to have to remember to add a full inch seam allowance to this because we'll be folding over our elastic and we want to make casing for it. And then we can just add a regular 1/2 inch allowance for the bottom and a 1/2 inch allowance for the sides. We're going to measure and mark 3.5 inches up from the bottom. On the other side, 3.5 inches up from the bottom edge, and we're going to make a mark there. And this will be our bottom elastic. And then for our bicep elastic, we're going to measure. We're going to measure from the point, the corner here. We're going to measure and mark 7.5 inches down. Okay, and then the same thing on the other side. And then basically now we want to just draw a straight line across that connects from here to here, and then a line that connects from here to here. So I've added some titles to my pattern. I've add 1 inch seam allowance for elastic casing, so I'll know I need to do that here. I've added flip for opposite sleeve, so I'll need to flip this on the fabric when I want to do the sleeve for the other side. I've titled the pattern puff sleeve, and I've added elastic on both sides of these lines so that I'll remember that my elastic needs to go here in order to gather the sleeves. So let's go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so now we have our patterns. We have our sleeve pattern, we have our back pattern, and we have our 2 front pieces that will make our front pattern. So we just need to transfer these patterns over to the fabric.